ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Well, we have spent a lot of time on this program discussing UFOs or UAPs. We've spent a lot of time on this program discussing these mysterious drones. What are these drones, and why did they all of a sudden go away? Or did they go away? Congressman Tim Burchett, who has largely been the number one guy in Congress on this UFO issue, he gave an interview the other day with one of his colleagues, and he said those drones are still out there. It's just that the media has decided to stop reporting them. Here was Congressman Burchett.
Say a submarine of one of our enemies comes up off the coast of North Carolina, but New York, for instance, and they put 50 or so drones in the air, and they might have a nuclear component, they could have a dirty bomb component, they could have a biological entity, and were to fly in. And now they know they can pretty much just fly in over our military. And when these are over military installations, some of these drones, they could fly in without any notice, without anybody firing a shot, literally. And they know they can do that. And so I would warn people, the drones are still out there and they're still flying, but our media is not, for whatever reason, is not covering it anymore. And we better get a grip on it, because that is a component of the next war that we will fight.
So what is this all about? What is the nexus between the drone issue and the UAP issue? And a lot of people in the UAP community are pretty enthusiastic about the next Trump administration, thinking it may blow the lid off of some of the government's secrets on the UAP issue. Someone who has been fighting for years to get the truth, at least as he sees it, out there to the public has been Stephen Bassett. Stephen Bassett is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group and a leading advocate, if not the leading advocate, for ending the government-imposed truth embargo regarding UFOs. Stephen Bassett, it's great to have you back on the program.
Yeah, Frank, it is great to be back, but it's interesting times, to say the least.
That is for sure. Let's get right into it. I'm sure you were following this drone situation as closely as anyone. What do you think these things were?
Things are getting very complicated, and I think that's not surprising. We've been dealing with this issue now of a non-human technology, a non-human presence, as citizens for 77 years, if not a little bit further, going back to Roswell, maybe even beyond. It's in its very basic level, it's this. Yes, we're not alone in the universe. There's other technological advanced species. I believe from the stars, remains to be seen, but that's what they say, where they say they're from. And the government of the United States, for national security reasons, decided that this had to be controlled, maintained. I like to call it embargoed, truth embargo. For 77 years into that, over the 77 years, an unbelievable amount of evidence, photographs, videos, testimony, documents have come forward, all pointing to the same thing. And yet the government has held on to this truth embargo. Eventually, there were breakthroughs. Witnesses came forward. Congress got involved. 4 tranches of legislation. 8 hearings since 2022 before a committee of one or the other. Prior to that, there hadn't been a hearing since 1968. And so a huge amount is happening, and we're clearly headed for confirmation. We're going to get confirmation from a president very soon. And it looks as if it's going to be President Donald Trump. Now, in the last 2 years, this phenomenon has taken on an interesting turn. And the first awareness of this was the fact that, quote, drones, and by the way, this is language stuff, okay? They've done this for years. Drones have been swarming around our Navy ships. In other words, flying around our Navy ships. We've gotten video of that, probably because seamen have filmed it with their own phones, which they have, and they got out. And nobody really knew what it was, but the film got out. This is over 2 years ago. And the first time I realized something was going on, above and beyond all that has happened, is that in the May 17th hearing, it took place in the Senate, subcommittee of the Senate Armed Services, I believe, is when they brought in Moultrie and Bray, the two gentlemen who were running the UAP task force, for a little catch up, right? What's going on? Tell us this, tell us that. It was the first hearing since 1968. A lot of people were expecting big things. It wasn't that much. Just a report. They were asked some interesting questions. They didn't really have any answers. But that video was shown. They showed that video at that hearing on May 17, 2022, of a ship at night with these things seem to be flying around. I couldn't believe it. They showed it. And Bray essentially attempted to debunk it, to explain, no, it was a trick of lighting or whatever, which was ridiculous. But in any event, that's what they did. And I said, something big is going on there. And the reason was very simple, right? Congressman Burchett alluded to it. There is no way that a Navy ship would have things flying around it, which it didn't know what it was, and not blow it out of the sky. And they have the ability to do that, believe me. They would have shut everything down. You simply cannot allow that. Those drones, or whatever you want to call it, whatever is flying around, could have sunk that ship, and they didn't do anything. And so that was 2 years ago. And then over the last 2 years, there have been these incursions over military bases and so forth that have not gotten a lot of attention, but they were noted. And so we were following it, but it was, what do you do? Right? All we knew is there are things turning up over bases, and they seemed to know nothing about it, but it did not really become a big thing until a couple of months ago when it exploded. Exploded. And I'm going, what is going on? And so what you have been seeing is, in the videos that are just pouring out, because, well, who in this world doesn't have a camera on them at all times? What you are seeing is a massive display of non-human tech. I say non-human tech, non-human technology.
Those drones meaning? No. What you're seeing is that the lights that are showing up in these constant videos, doing all manner of tricks, sometimes in groups of 10, 12, 15, 20 moving here. Most seem to be over facility-sensitive places, military facilities or something. Look, that's not us. And when that started happening, the government was in a terrible position. What are you going to do when these reports start coming in that there's lights, plasma effects of some kind, and they're moving over our facilities, sensitive facilities and bases? What do you do? You're helpless. I mean, this is called the UFO flap. And it turns out this may be the biggest UFO flap in history. It really goes back almost 2 years. UFO flaps are when you have sightings bunched up over a period of time, lots of them, and call it a flap. There have been many over the last 70 years, but probably the most famous occurred in July 1952, when lights just like are being reported now, that are being seen over bases, were flying over Washington, D.C. for almost 8 or 9 days, and there was nothing they could do about it. And so it really scared the government. They knew the ET presence was here, but they did not expect that. They didn't know what to do. So they put out a statement that seemed to kind of calm things down, but didn't really explain it. And then eventually they dealt with it by pulling together a panel out of the CIA called the Robertson Panel later that year that would produce a classified report saying, look, this stuff doesn't seem to be a threat, but the public's interest in it has got to be squelched. And that was 1952. That was a flap. This was much bigger than that. The government, what do you do?
Here is what is, as far as we can tell, that they did. All right. We have drones. We have lots of drones. We have drones people have never seen. The technology and drone research has been going on religiously, and it's all classified, because the next wars are going to be drone wars, whatever. And so what we did is we launched our own drones up into this phenomena. So in other words, you got a situation, you've got these lights coming in, they're flying over the bases. What they're doing, they just launch our own drones into that event, so that people that are seeing this off to the side, if you're not on the base, you're off to the side, they're filming from a different direction, whatever, they are seeing some things which look like drones. They're some of them are large, some of them are small, but they've got lights on them and so forth. And that looks like a drone. It's not an airplane, but it's something else. And so that allowed the government to say, these are drones. They referred to drone swarms. And so what they've done is, by putting drones up, they can call it drone swarms, which means it's all drones, which means all those other things, the plasma effects, balls moving here, there, and everything else, and being filmed, it's just drones. That is all they could do. And those of us that have been following this, it's kind of amusing. I appreciate their dilemma, but it's utterly absurd. And every member of Congress that's following this kind of knows that, right? In other words, you've got drones flying over our military bases. We actually do. And we're not shooting them down. We're not sending up helicopters to survey them. We're doing nothing. But, at least they're drones. Chill. No, that's not the way it works. They blow them up. They shoot them down. But they don't. Why? Because there are drones. It's the other thing, the other phenomena. It is the light effects, the plasma effects, all of those things that are being seen everywhere. That is what this is about. And those, whether they're drones or not drones, is irrelevant. In other words, if you have a non-human craft or a non-human thing, if it doesn't have a pilot, it's a drone. All right? And so this is a language game being played as they desperately try to figure out how the hell they're going to get through this. And nothing demonstrates this problem better than when Kirby, who is spokesperson for one of the spokespersons for the Department of Defense, is confronted by the media on this. And they said, ask Kirby, they said, look, these things that you call drones, are they ours? And he says no, which is amazing. We have drones over our military facilities, and they're not ours? You can't, really? No. And then they said, well, if they're not ours, are they another nation's? And he says, no, they're not another nation's. Which, how could he know that? That's not something he could know. It's proving a native. Right? And then he's asked, and then you can go watch this. The film is out there. It's all over the internet. Then he's asked, well, then what are they? We don't know. That is the situation the United States government is in. And the reason it's in that is that this non-human presence, whatever I call it extraterrestrial, but this non-human presence has taken direct action to intervene in this situation. They are forcing the government's hand. Now, we know how close we're getting to disclosure. We know how much is happening. We know about the interest in Congress, right? We know the amount of coverage of this is in the thousands of articles every year. It's just amazing how much coverage. The drone phenomena, as it's called, I've logged in over 200 media articles about it. So it's been intensely covered. It's fallen off a little bit because, it's just nothing changes. Right? And then you've got an inauguration coming up, but those things aren't going away. This is an intentional act, I believe, by our non-human friends to force this issue by putting the government into an impossible position where it cannot give you any sensible answer, right? And they still can't tell you the truth.
Stephen, let me get you to pause there. I have to take a quick break. We're going to continue with Stephen Bassett in a moment. If time permits, we will try and get to a few of your questions as well. Our phone number is 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight, talking UFOs, UAPs, and drones with Stephen Bassett of the Paradigm Research Group. We'll continue straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 Oikos Remix varieties with epic mix-ins and 11 grams of complete protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your real ID at tsa.gov/real ID. That's tsa.gov/real ID. Or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano. The Other Side of Midnight presents The Midnight Files. The Midnight
Midnight in the desert, shooting stars across the sky. This magical journey will take us on a ride, filled with the longing, searching for the truth. Will we make it till tomorrow? Will the sun shine on you? Midnight in the desert, and we're listening. Ooh, we're listening to you.
We are talking drones, UFOs, and UAPs with Stephen Bassett. If there was a lobbyist for the UFO community, well, actually, I don't even know that I need to make it a hypothetical. Stephen Bassett is the lobbyist for the UFO community and the push for disclosure. Stephen, I want to get back to some of the things that you were saying with respect to drones and UFOs in a second. But you described our non-human friends or extraterrestrials in very matter-of-fact terms. A lot of people are listening to us, Stephen, and saying, well, wait a minute. I didn't know that this was incontrovertible. I thought the jury was still out on whether or not there were actually extraterrestrials. We've certainly seen the congressional testimony from David Grush and others. But in your view, what is it that's incontrovertible in terms of proof that leaves you convinced that there are actually aliens that have visited this planet and potentially even interacted with people on this planet?
This thing has been now in play for 77 years, since Roswell. Roswell case was studied to death. Hundreds of interviews absolutely happened. Over the years, witnesses have come forward. Documents have been uncovered. There's been endless examples of the phenomena. And so I assure you, it's The only reason it's not accepted worldwide as absolute fact is the U.S. government and its allies made a decision that this simply would not be acknowledged. No amount of proof, nothing, right? That's why you keep hearing about what if they land on the White House lawn. Well, if they landed on the White House lawn, they'd probably rush out, grab them, take them underground, and say nothing happened. In other words, this is a massively backed lie for national security, which has been maintained with the enormous resources of the United States government and with the cooperation of its post-World War II allies. It's one of the most extraordinary events in human history that I call the truth embargo. It's really amazing. And so if you know the history, if you know about the research and the evidence, and that's what you do, and I have for 30 years, I assure you, you would have absolutely zero doubt. Other people are coming forward and saying this. Carl Nell, a respected former military colonel, came forward and said it absolutely out loud on television in an interview. A Nobel Prize nominee in genetic science, Gary Nolan, who's based at Stanford University, he went on News Nation and said, absolutely, there's an ET presence. He's not the only one. Astronauts have said it. This has been going on a long time. Now, I understand anybody in the country who doesn't say, well, I don't know. I don't know. It's not established, is it? Or what do you know? I get it. The government basically wants it that way. They have been keeping it that way. They have hung on to this embargo. And I say government, I mean those in the United States government who oppose the people knowing the truth, who have enough influence to keep this thing going. But their ability is collapsing. There's no question. They're collapsing. The whole truth embargo is falling apart. But there is substantial resistance, certainly within the Department of defense contractors. They have pushed back. But overall, we've been moving towards disclosure for some time. And we're close. But we still can't quite get there, right? There's been some efforts to squash it. There's been a lot of upheaval in the world. So we're not quite there. And then this phenomenon starts to explode. The ETs can do what they want, when they want, how they want, and there is nothing we can do about it. But if they choose to not do anything, that's, again, their choice. In 1952, after 8 or 9 days, the flyovers of D.C. stopped. They just went away. And that obviously made the government's job a lot easier, and they were able to deal with it, and they developed the truth embargo, formalized it through the Robertson panel. They don't seem to be going away this time. If they don't go away, if they keep this up, they're absolutely going to force our hand. Now, I have reasonable information that the next president is leaning into this, that he may very well disclose this. He may end it, right? There's hearings that are planned. The House is going to have another hearing. Witnesses are being lined up. I've been working with witnesses to come forward. And the witnesses I'm working with are the witnesses to the shutdown of our nuclear weapons who have never been able to testify. But now the entire House subcommittee knows about them. I've actually spoken to Senator Gillibrand. She wants to talk with the lead nuclear weapon shutdown. And these are the famous cases, which are now pretty much well known, that one of these, quote, craft comes down, hovers over an ICBM flight, and all the missiles shut down. And they're first-hand witnesses to that. And so that is pending. There's going to be another hearing on that, or a hearing on this. And there are many other witnesses coming forward. So the thing is collapsing. And the timing of it is such, it's not a political thing, I assure you, is the timing is that it's going to be President Trump that ends this. He is going to be the one that tells us. Now, there may be a hearing first, or he may just do it on his own based upon statements he's received from his own appointees to the Department of Defense, the CIA, and so forth, in which case then the hearings will follow. All right. But one way or another, this is about to end, I believe, in the first 30 or 40 days of the Trump.
Wow. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Stephen Bassett, offering the rather bombshell speculative claim that we could see within the first 30 to 40 days a watershed moment in terms of the U.S. government's communication to the public on the UAP issue. That if Trump was going to do that, Why wouldn't he have done it last time during his first administration?
Well, because most of the most significant progress that was made on ending the truth embargo occurred after he left office. The turning point was in 2017, in December, late in 2017, when you had the articles in the New York Times. And these individuals came forward, which we came to know very well, like Elizondo and Mellon and Gary Nolan and others. That then led to about a two and a half year process in which briefings were taking place, witnesses were being taken up on the Hill. And so it was kind of in the background. And other things were happening. And I think President Trump at the time did not really have that much interest in it. He was asked a couple of questions, but he didn't say too much. But then after he left, things exploded. And so what happens? All right, you've got the legislation initially started by Rubio that was signed while Trump was president, but then took effect under the Biden administration. That led to the first legislation ever on this issue. And then the next year you had another piece and another piece and another piece. And then you had Grush coming forward in 2023. And so essentially most of the public explosion on this occurred during the Biden administration. So when President Trump comes back the second time, all of this is on the table. All of this has happened. This is a totally different situation. And he's already been asked repeatedly about this, he even brought it up on the Rogan show himself. In a sense, he brought it up, might have been scripted, but whatever. I don't know how many millions of people have seen that interview. It's a very large number. We are getting indications that people around him are favoring this. They're bringing it up. And so, I've actually spoken with Nancy Mace of the House Subcommittee. She wants another hearing badly. So does Burleson. And so factor all of this progress, all of this interest. The first UAP task force in history, not task force, the UAP caucus, the first UAP caucus in history was formed a while ago. And so and all of that was before this phenomena finally exploded. That's like the last 2 years, increasing every month. Now, I'm checking the media all the time. I believe the media has fallen off a little bit, probably because they've been covering it and nothing changes, right? And, of course, you've got an inauguration coming up. You've got lots of things happening. But as far as I know, the phenomena is still taking place. Now, remember, we're talking about two phenomena here. One is whatever the hell the ETs are doing, right? And then what the government is doing. So the government may elect to stop putting drones up there, which would cut down on some of the quote reports. But as far as the ET phenomena, I'm still seeing that videos are coming in. So when I say this is complex, I mean it is complex. But I will say this. Given everything that's happened since 2021, and given all of the film that was taken about this, I mean, everybody in this world practically has a camera. Untold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos of these plasma of balls of light, or whatever the hell you want to call them, are now been seen, passed around, and archived. So that's not going to change. And so the stage is set. This truth embargo is simply dissolving in front of our eyes. And so it's just a matter of when a president, based upon a major hearing, or simply because the president chooses to do so, finally ends this thing and brings about what I call capital D disclosure. And every president since Truman has known about this presence. How much they knew varied greatly. Some may have gotten briefings from their own Department of Defense. Some simply were tipped off, but they always knew. Only two presidents have made an effort to try to do something. One was Jimmy Carter, and he was stonewalled. And the other was President Clinton, and he was stonewalled. And they successfully held him off. All right? So now the question is, will the next president finally be the one that ends it? And all the indicators are yes. Now, something could happen. I mean, nothing is certain, believe me. But one of the things about the new president, unlike any president we've had, is that if he decides he wants to do something, like Clinton or like Carter, and the Secretary of Defense says, no, we can't do that, sir. We're not going to help you. Or the CIA director says, as happened with Carter, you don't have a need to know. He is the one president that in our lifetime that would basically tell them to go pound sand.
Right. Yeah, that's always been my hope. If folks are just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. My guest is Stephen Bassett. The government claims that these objects, going back to the drones, are not a threat. If they were extraterrestrial, wouldn't their advanced technology inherently pose a threat by virtue of capabilities alone, regardless of the intent?
Look, anything certainly like this could be a threat. Everything's a potential threat, right? We understand that, all right? And that's why when you have, quote, drones flying around one of our military ships, you don't simply just hope it goes away. You blow them out of the sky, but they don't. In those cases, when it comes to this phenomenon, they already know you can't do that. There's one video that I saw, and I've got to find it again, that seems to purport an attempt to actually shoot at these things with nothing, right? No effect. And so they are, as long as they were unknown, they're still a threat. Everything's a potential threat. We get this, okay? But those drones that they're seeing over our military bases, of course, are a threat, right? But they say they're not ours. They say they're not another nation's, okay? And then given the fact that government can't actually address this directly because they're in a corner, the rumors are developing out of the internet. Iranian drones coming off an Iranian drone ship off the coast. Chinese drones, because they have them. They got plenty of drones. So they're Chinese drones. And the idea is, well, they're Chinese drones. And well, that's irritating. What are you going to do? Chinese drones flying over a military base. What are you going to do? I'll tell you what you do. You blow them out of the sky. When a Chinese surveillance balloon, and they fly them all the time, we do the same thing, springs a leak and falls down from 80,000 feet, gets into the flight zone, gets seen. We had to shoot it down. We had to shoot it down. We used two $500,000 missiles, $1 million to shoot it down. But all this other stuff, right? We don't even do anything. That's because Chinese drones exist, yeah, but they're not flying over our country in that sense. Russia may have drones. Ukraine has drones. So what? The point is that you have an extraordinary phenomenon going on that is a hell of a lot more than drones. But drones are being used to mask it as a last-ditch effort to prevent having to confirm that there's stuff up there that doesn't come from human origin. But they're just running out of room. They're running out of excuses. And when someone like Kirby has to come out and make statements that bizarre, meaning, yeah, there's things flying over our bases, but they're not ours, and they're not another nation's, and we don't know what they are. Again, think about that. That is the Department of Defense saying that. That's insane. However, it's all they can do because the ETs or the non-human technology entities, whatever the hell they are, have put them in an absolute corner, almost forcing the next president, even if he didn't want to, is going to have to end this truth embargo. And so the ETs are intervening. I call it an intervention. They seem to have lost patience. They've decided to escalate the matter in the way of their choosing. And so there are real drones up there, and there are things that are not ours. Call them drones, call them whatever the hell you want. This is mixed together. It's a mess, but it is what is happening.
You alluded a little while ago to the shutdown of nuclear weapons facilities, and you pointed before to nuclear weapons shutdown incidents as possible evidence of extraterrestrial involvement. Could these events also be explained as cyber or electromagnetic interference caused by terrestrial adversaries, maybe like during the Cold War when we were in the midst of very, very heated hostilities with the Soviet Union?
No. We have firsthand witnesses to the shutdown of these missiles. A craft, right? A substantial craft hovering directly over the base. You can hit it with a baseball throw. The security guards up top are running around out of their mind. They're calling down to the silo commander saying, we've got something up here. And we know several of those, but one of those is Bob Salas. He basically said, just let me know what's going on. And the next thing you know, all the missiles on that ICBM flight started shutting down. It happened at Maelstrom, happened at Minot, and it happened in 4 or 5 other places. And then it happened in the Soviet Union. And being able to shut down independently serviced ICBMs, it's simply, and this is back in 66, 67, okay? This isn't now.
Right.
And so I assure you, the evidence for the shutdown of nuclear missiles is absolutely solid. And it is the most important evidence out there in terms of testimony. And the Department of Defense has done everything they can to pretend all of these men don't exist. And with the Department of Defense encouragement, somehow intervention, they've never been able to testify. The closest they've come is I brought 3 of them into Washington, D.C. in 2013, in May and June of 2013, to testify in a mock congressional hearing, which I call the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure, before 6 former members of Congress. And that testimony was filmed. I delivered it to every single one of the offices, all 545 members. That's the best I could do. There was some coverage. And then things moved on again, but that's the closest they have come. But the ones that are still alive are ready to testify immediately, and the House Subcommittee knows this. The House Select Committee on Intelligence knows this. They've all gotten copies of their witness statements, right, as well as the cover letters from Bob Salas with his phone number and his email. And so I think we're heading for them finally, and these are fine men that were trusted with actually having the ability under the right code, delivery of the right codes to launch nuclear missiles and kill millions of people. And they're honestly good men, and they have wanted to tell the truth for decades. And the only reason, and a lot of them are dying off because they're in their 80s, and they still want to come forward. And so all I can say, folks, if you knew what I knew, you would understand. This is not conjecture. This is absolute fact. And the United States government is just about very close to having no choice but to confirm it. But that confirmation can't come from an astronaut. It can't come from a colonel or a general. It has to come from the President of the United States, hopefully with the involvement of Congress, which we have. The last 4 years, Congress is engaging this. It has been involved. There have been hearings. And so that is pretty much out of the way. We haven't had the substantive hearing that I would like, because believe me, we could have a hearing that would last a week that would go out around the world and blow the truth embargo out of the water, because there's been pushback. But more hearings are coming, and a new president is coming. You put those two together, add this phenomena into the mix, and I have to say that I feel a high level of confidence that it's just about to end. I'm not predicting it. I don't get special information. Right, I don't have some inside. I'm simply saying, and I'm not the only one. Believe me, if you've been paying attention to the internet and just following stuff, a number of people are coming forward who have decent backgrounds that are saying the same thing. Something is about to happen. I believe it's the end of the truth embargo.
Stephen Bassett, we're going to pause right there. We'll continue in a moment. We'll try and squeeze in some of the people that are on hold with questions as well. If you want to jump on board, we'll try and get to you. 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Stephen Bassett. He'll stick around straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight. It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Two little men in a flying saucer flew down to earth one day. Looked to left and right of it, couldn't stand the sight of it, and said, let's fly away. They took a look at a Western movie. Somebody heard them say, if a horse can be a star, think how dumb the people are, we'd better fly away. Then they shook
The
their
great
heads.
Ella
Oh,
Fitzgerald singing about UFOs. We have one of the foremost experts on this subject who's kind enough to join us in the middle of the night in this hour. That's Stephen Bassett. You can learn more about him by checking out the Paradigm Research Group. He's also a regular on every documentary program that explores this subject, whether it's Ancient Aliens, whether it's any of the others. But you can check out paradigmresearchgroup.org and learn more about what they're doing. Steve, I have one or two more questions here, and then I'll turn the questioning over to our audience with whatever time we have remaining. 646-720-0635. Many skeptics argue that UFO sightings often occur in restricted airspace where classified technologies are tested. How do you differentiate between classified technology and potential extraterrestrial craft?
Well, first of all, the phenomena goes back all the way to the 40s, and even before that. All right. And so let's just say that the tech we had back in the 40s was not quite what we have now. Secondly, the evidence is of a very broad spectrum of accounts and reports and so forth from all over the world. This isn't just happening in the United States. And it's a massive amount of evidence. And so consequently, the idea that it's just a misunderstanding of some government program, we're way, way past that. So it is what the evidence is. And the evidence is pretty straightforward and has never been explained by the United States government. But they'll throw anything out there. It's this, it's that, whatever, because they simply can't tell you what it is. However, people in our government have done that. Edgar Mitchell, he was an astronaut. He went to the moon. He said, repeatedly stated, we have ETs here. Another astronaut, Gordon Cooper, said it. Scientists have said it. And recently, others have come forward. These are people with backgrounds in substantial education and so forth. And so, again, there's always the possibility that it's something else, right? As long as you don't actually look at the actual evidence and the actual reports that we have and accumulated. And so this is a game going on in a sense. It's a game of hide the ball underneath the cup. It's like three-guard monte. It's just a game that the government plays in order to service the fact that they made a decision. The public could not know the truth of that, and they can't give that decision up. But they are very close to having no other choice. We're winning this. It's been difficult, and it's getting very complicated. But I assure you, the evidence is overwhelming that there is a non-human presence here. We have hundreds of thousands of reports in the form of letters and emails sent privately with no expectation of anything other than you need to know my story that have accumulated regarding direct contactees. You know what that is. Everybody knows what it is. Call it alien abduction, call it what you want. We have hundreds of thousands of those have accumulated in the files of researchers. People have sent them their story because they just wanted somebody to know, right? Now, many have come forward. There's been books and analysis of these accounts. And these contactees, we call them, are frequently told by these extraterrestrials that they're from the stars. Now, that evidence is not in play now. That hasn't been put in front of Congress. There are plenty of people like myself and others that know about this, but you can't put that evidence to Congress. It's too much. They can't handle that. That's okay. And so all of that evidence is off to the side while we work with something a little bit easier for the members of Congress to deal with. Right? And a national security issue or potential threat is the safest way to go. And so they have gone that way. That's fine. So when you hear members of Congress or witnesses or people like Elizondo or anybody else saying things about threat, usually it's always potential threat. That should be said that way. But once in a while they just say threat. And part of that is simply because that is the politically appropriate, safe way to step into this issue without losing your career. Of course, it's a potential threat. But if it was a real threat, if these entities really wanted to do nasty stuff to us, we could do absolutely nothing about it, right? So if it is a threat, so what? We can't do anything about it. So at least let's get the truth out so everybody can contemplate it, right? Deal with it, address it. Plus, there's suppressed science because they've been re-engineering craft. They have gotten many craft. They've not, that's what Grush was telling us. They have craft. They've been re-engineering and studying it for decades. None of that science, as far as we know, is available to us. So this is big, right? It's huge. Nothing like it has ever happened before. We just happen to be alive to be present for this. And so I respect the fact that it is very challenging to people trying to get their head around it. That's why you have activists and citizen researchers that have stepped in to try to understand this and explain it to the people, because the government won't. We've done the best job we can. And by and large, we've made a lot of progress. And now the Congress is involved, and they're really fired up. And more witnesses are coming forward. So the end of an era is coming. And when the announcement is made, I think in due course, we'll get a lot of information that will clarify what the hell is going on. And I'm putting my money down on the government will confirm that we have contact from intelligent beings of their choice coming here, probably almost certainly from other stars, and have been for some time. And now you're going to know more about it. That's what the legislation was about, trying to get everything the government knows about these entities out in the open. And that legislation was pushed back on and cut in half. I get it. But half of it's still there. All right. And so, again, it's a long story. It's a complicated phenomenon. The truth embargo is a huge thing that's happened. And all I can say, folks, is we're doing the best I can to finally get this resolved so you can really learn the truth about this and not just have to listen to innuendos and rumors and silliness on the internet.
Let me get at least one quick question in here from Frankie in Highlands, who's been holding for a long time. Frankie, you're on with Stephen Bassett.
Thanks, Frankie. Stephen Bassett, thank you. I mean, from the bottom of my heart. Okay, to a warless world where we, as your posterity, are rooting for you so that the five superpowers that must coexist in all their alliances with our voices of humanity say tonight and throughout the rest of this time between now and March 25th, where we know the difference between celebration and concerts of progress or a devastation. See, light can be the answer to everything. Even
Frank, I just want to give Stephen an opportunity to respond. So if you could bring your point
about baseball, and then I'll stop. Okay. So just as an example, one-on-one, small fields to stadiums, competitions for these kids that we get to know, and it grows internationally. Stuff like that, while diplomacy is enforced by the highest rank of volunteers from all established sovereignties.
All right, Frankie. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Stephen, I don't know that there's much for you to respond to there, but be my guest if there is.
Look, the people are starting to get pretty excited. I'm tapped in the internet. I'm on major social media. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, and so people are really getting excited. All right, and that's great. I like it, but they still don't have a full proper understanding of this because the government has denied it, and so it's going to be a little wild and crazy as we approach the end of the truth embargo, and I get that, and I'm appreciative, right? But what we need is people to get excited in a situation where they know the truth, what is going on. The government is being forthright, and we're getting real information, and they're getting excited about that. Without that, it's diffused and it doesn't go anywhere. And this is, in other words, the government of the United States, God bless it, has been treating its citizens since the end of World War II and the beginning of the nuclear arms race like children. We're just little children, and we don't have a need to know or a right to know, and we can't handle the truth. But a select group in our highest level of military and intelligence can handle it, and they are keeping it from us for our own good. That's the simplest way to put this. And so I'm not surprised that people are confused and then getting very excited, but they don't know what's going on. And this is not the way to run a country. And this is true here. It's true of every country. There are other countries that are not happy about this, I assure you. Now, I can't speak for Russia and I can't speak for China, right? But you can be damn sure that the Chinese government knows about the ET presence, and so does the Russian government. So I can't speak for them, but I can say this: in the democratic countries that have a relatively, free speech and what have you, this kind of behavior, this truth embargo, is incompatible. And so all I can say is the gentleman's fired up. God bless him. Hopefully he'll have enough information to be able to speak and think about it clearly.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Steve, we're going to have to end it there. I always enjoy our time together. The hour just flies by. I hope we can do this again. And if we do see some major revelations in the first 30 to 40 days of the Trump administration, I'm hoping we can call upon you again to help us break those down.
Absolutely.
Stephen Bassett, check him out at the Paradigm Research Group. Really fascinating. You want to comment? You can, 646-720-0635. For everybody else, keep asking questions.